Hi there. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Cameron Stanley, and I wanted to thank you so much for watching this video recording of my presentation of my senior project. It's something I'm really excited to share with all of you. For my project, I decided that I wanted to do the beginning of a TV adaptation of the novel The Girls by Emma Cline. So to start off, I want to talk about my project design. So there are really two main problems being addressed in this narrative. The first one really just has to do with issues of identity. We see this through our main character, Evie, as both a young teenager and a middle-aged woman. As a young teenager, Evie is 14. She's about to go off to her first year at boarding school for high school, and she has recently gone through a really bad falling out with her best friend. And because she doesn't really have any other friends, and she also doesn't really identify with her parents either, she's really not only trying to find her own inner identity, but she's also trying to find a community of people who she identifies with as well. As a middle-aged woman, Evie is dealing with slightly different issues of identity because she's dealing with an identity that has almost been forced upon her because of the actions of the people that she had identified with that summer when she was a teenager. The second main problem that's really being addressed in this story is human nature's desire for love and companionship. As a part of, trying to find a community that she identifies with, the reason she's trying to find people she identifies with is because she doesn't really feel like she has a community, and she doesn't feel like she has people in her life. So she's really lacking love and companionship. And what happens when a young teenager doesn't have that companionship and that love? They try to find it wherever they can, even in a cult, quite literally in this case. And as an adult, we can see that Evie is still trying to find even just companionship through the people that she's interacting with in her everyday life, because she doesn't really have anyone else. The two sort of twin pillars in my approach to this project really has to do with both content and research. As far as content goes, I really just wanted to make sure that whatever story I picked to use to create this TV adaptation, I really just wanted to make sure I was staying true to the narrative that the author had created. Because to me, a TV or a movie adaptation of a story shouldn't be making the story your own. It should be helping the story come to life as it is. And as far as research goes, I wanted to make sure that I was both being historically accurate as Evie was growing up in 1969, and I wanted to make sure that my costume designs were accurate to that time period. But I also did a lot of research into how script writing should be done for TV shows and movies, because I wanted to make sure that my script and my script writing technique was as accurate as possible to professional writing today. So this story really is geared more towards a young adult and adult audience, even though this is more of a coming of age story and Evie is about 14 years old. There are definitely more mature themes throughout the narrative that aren't necessarily appropriate for anyone younger than that. And I also think that this story is also geared a lot more towards females, not for any particular reason other than the fact that a lot of the characters are female. There are really only 2 or 3 characters that come up often that are male characters. There really are some significant aspects of this narrative and in my work in helping this narrative come to life. The first one I really think is the fact that it does take a different approach than most coming-of-age stories. We're not only seeing Evie as a 14-year-old going through this story with her, but we're also seeing her as a middle-aged woman, and we're seeing how her coming-of-age story has impacted her adult life, and we're also seeing her reflect back on it as well, which I think is a different approach than most coming-of-age stories at least take. I think another reason why there's significance to this is that it doesn't necessarily glorify negative behavior. it's not glorifying the drug abuse specifically, because it does happen in this story, and I think that the author does a really good job, and I think I've also done a pretty good job in showing how it is what it is. This is how it is literally impacting this person, and I think that that's really important, especially because in a lot of coming of age stories today, there can definitely be some glorification in sexual activity and drug abuse and things like that. I think that the third reason why there really is significance is because this story just really shows how our childhood impacts our adulthood, and how our childhood experiences will impact how we develop as an adult and how we grow into the person that we are and we end up becoming. There are definitely less extreme examples of this in real life, but I think that taking it to the extreme in this instance helps us reflect on it in our own lives. So now I want to actually take you guys through some of my projects. When I started this project, I knew that I wanted to do something in regards to creating a TV show or a movie. And I knew that I wanted to do script writing, and I knew that I also really was interested in design aspects like the costuming and things like that. So I knew that trying to come up with my own narrative would be very time consuming, and I knew that it just wasn't going to be the best focus of my time to try to literally come up with this story. So that's why I decided to do an adaptation of The Girls by Emma Cline. I chose this novel because it is not only a very interesting narrative, but it also is very thought-provoking and has deeper themes to it as well. After I picked my book, I decided that I wanted to try to find a really good script writing platform to help me make sure that my script was formatted correctly and also keep me organized while I was writing. And I found Writer Duet. It's online, it's completely free, and it was just a really great resource for me to find. After I wrote my script, I knew that I needed to do some research into the fashion during that time period for my costume designs. So I used Pinterest to do this research and to compile it all together so that I could reflect back on it while I was doing my costume designing. And after that, I used Sketchbook, which is an app on my tablet, to draw the designs out. This is just a quick screenshot of Writer Duet and what it looks like when you're using it online. As you can see, my script is in the middle, and there are a lot of different formatting tools on the left. And as you can see, it has helped me properly format my script in regards to how to write what scene it is, how to write whose line it is, and the dialogue in a proper formatting. This is a screenshot of my Pinterest board that I had created to help with designing my costuming. And these are all images and design aspects from the proper time period. So it really helped me when I was deciding what I needed to create for my costumes. When I first started this project, my idea was initially to write the pilot for the entire 30-minute TV show. But when I started writing, I realized that this probably wasn't the best route to take. So instead, in order to create a more cohesive story for you, the audience, as well, I decided to take the really significant moments of the book and write the scripts for those scenes. And I ended up writing the scripts for 5 different scenes, and that PDF file should be online. This here is just the screenshots of the first 3 scenes, the first 3 pages of the first scene. And you can see the formatting is accurate, and you can see just what it looks like in general. So this is my first character design compilation. This is for the character Evie, our main character throughout our story. For my casting, I decided that I wanted to do Daphne Keene as my first choice with Mackenzie Ziegler as a backup. And as you can see, I also did research on the different hairstyles as well as the clothing options. So for Evie, I decided that I wanted to keep her hair a little bit longer and a little bit more tame at the beginning. I also did a braided design because in the second scene, Suzanne had braided her hair, and as you can see in the third sort of sketch, her hair is a little bit lighter, and this is because scene 3 and beyond, her hair definitely has more sun in it and it's a bit lighter because she's been spending more time outside. As far as the costuming goes, the first sort of outfit on the top is just t-shirt and jeans, not anything too crazy. That's sort of what she would have been wearing before she really got involved with the cult. And after she began to get involved with the cult and started wearing the same clothes as them, her fashion choices got a little bit more flowy, a little bit more relaxed, and you can see that in the designs here. So this is my character design board for the character Suzanne, who's the first girl that Evie meets in the cult, and the first person that she really connects with, and really just the person she connects with the most throughout the whole story. For casting, my first choice was Daisy Ridley. You can see her in the top right corner, and Kiersey Clemens was a good backup for me. Her hair is described in the book as very long and dark. It's actually one of the first things that Evie really notices about Suzanne, so that was really important to me to keep accurate and to just keep very simple but really beautiful as well. Her clothing, her fashion choices are also really just more have to do with ease and flowing and just really nice and easy to put on, throw on something in the morning. And Suzanne is actually the person who is in charge of just the clothes in general for the women in the cult. They all really just share the same wardrobe, so hers is a little bit newer, a little bit nicer, but she really just reflects the style of everyone else as well. So this is my character design board for Russell, the leader of the cult, and one of the few male roles in this novel, actually. So for casting, I decided that I wanted to go with Richard Madden, who you might actually recognize from Game of Thrones, with Penn Badgley as a really good backup choice. For his hair, I wanted something a little bit looser and curly because he always encouraged the women not to cut their hair, so I imagine he really didn't do it very often either. And as far as the costuming goes, it was a pretty easy decision to choose a buckskin shirt because that's what he was described as wearing a lot of the time, and the jeans were very common in that time period. So this is my character design board for Donna. She's a little bit more of a supporting character, but she does definitely play an important role in one of the scenes that I wrote about, so I wanted to do a character design board for her as well. I decided that Rachel Hurdwood was my first choice for an actress. She really had the look that I liked, especially in the images that you see on the top left with the long red hair. And Allison Munn was a really good second choice for me, though, because she is also on the younger side. A lot of the women are on the younger side of the age range. One of her character descriptors was that she had flat red hair, so that was a pretty easy choice for styling her hair. I did put little braids in her hair just because I wanted to mix it up a little bit. They did braid their hair a lot, so I did want some of the characters to have that more often. And for her first outfit on the top, she's wearing a knitted vest, which was also one of the first things that she was described as wearing, so I wanted to make sure that I included that. And for the dress, her second outfit, it really just is in the similar vein of design as the other females that I have in my character boards, so I thought that was pretty important considering they all share the same wardrobe. So my last character design board was for a character named Helen, who was also in one of the later scenes who played an important role. And for casting, I decided that I wanted Melina Weissman as my first choice. In the top left, she was the older sister in a series of unfortunate events. Her face shape just really gives me, and the bangs just really gave me the visual sort of appeal of Helen, who's also described as one of the younger girls in the cult and a little bit babyish at times. So I don't know, I thought the rounder, chubbier cheeks kind of gave that impression as well. But I did also really like Jenna Ortega for that role because she's a little bit younger and she can sort of do that role as well. Her hair is also always described as almost always in pigtails, so that was a really easy decision design-wise. And I ended up just having pieces of fabric tied around her pigtails to keep them together because they really didn't have a lot of money, so they weren't going to be spending it on hair elastics exactly. So for the costuming designs, she absolutely worshipped Russell. I mean, they all did, but she did a little bit more than the rest of them. So I decided that one of her outfits would be one of his old shirts, and it would be big on her, so it would be about dress length anyways. And you can also see in the bottom left, that outfit with the shorts is with one of Evie's old tops, because Evie actually says that her clothes ended up almost all of her clothes ended up joining the wardrobe of the cult. Just as she spent more time there, it just all got mixed together. So obviously other characters would have ended up wearing clothes that had initially been hers. So I think I was actually pretty successful in addressing the problems of identity issues and human nature's desire for love and connection, simply because I stuck with the narrative that Emma Cline wrote initially. These were themes that she addressed in her novel, so by sticking to the novel as closely as I could, I think that I was also able to address these issues. I do think it was a little bit easier to identify that I was addressing these issues in my script writing because I did pick specific scenes out to write about, so that was just something that I was able to utilize to address the problems a bit more clearly. As far as constraints goes, one constraint that I did face was censoring more explicit aspects of the story. For example, there was a lot of swearing, so I did have to omit that for the most part, except for I think one instance where it was pretty significant to the tension of the moment. I did also have to censor a scene that is semi-relevant and semi-important to the main story as a whole, simply because there were inappropriate aspects to it. However, I did think about how I would have written that scene if I were to actually be writing the script for this as a TV show or a movie, so that was pretty interesting. Another constraint that I faced was definitely remembering the difference between script writing and directing and creative writing, because there were definitely times where I wanted to write, this is what this moment would look like visually, but that's not what script writing is, so I had to clear a lot of that out of my script after I wrote the rough drafts for the most part. So something about the role of communication in addressing social needs that I think needs to be a little bit more prevalent is that it doesn't necessarily need to be a directly targeted form of communication. It doesn't need to be a PSA on mental health. It doesn't need to be a very emotionally charged ASPCA commercial. You can use storytelling to expose the issue indirectly. And I think it's also important to realize that it doesn't need to be an issue like pollution or climate change. It doesn't need to be something that we can actually see. It can be things like mental health issues, like identity issues, like trying to find love and companionship in this world. It can be about something that's a little bit more conceptual. Something that I definitely learned about myself through this project is that I've been curious to figure out how my faith as a Christian and my interest in this industry are going to work together, and I've definitely been learning a lot about that throughout this course and throughout this project, and I'm excited to continue to learn about that. I've also learned that I have such a diversity in my own interests as far as the roles that I would want to play in the creation of a movie or a TV show. Because the reason I'm really interested in communication arts and this path of communication arts is because I want to be a part of making this story come to life. And there's really a lot more to it than just holding the camera or holding the microphone. There's so many other things that I can do to be a part of that process. And it's a really inspiring and really exciting prospect for me.